National Assembly Joint Committee on INEC has no final say on source of funds for 2019 general elections. 12 in Benue IDP camp die of malaria, diarrhea and malnutrition. In international news, death toll in Afghanistan suicide bombing rises to 68. And in sports, Super Eagles defeat Liberia 2-1 in international friendly match.
This is ANN News.
I am Rotimi Akintunde. President Muhammadu Buhari has lashed out at defectors from the All Progressives Congress, describing them as weak and selfish politicians. The president did not mention names, but he made a comment at an event marking the handing over and acceptance of his nomination forms at the presidential villa on Tuesday. Observers believe the president was referring to top politicians and others who recently defected from the APC. Buhari said, quote, "The weakest people whose senses of expectation do not align with our vision have exited our party," end quote. He said the exit of the defectors has brought about a party of strong and patriotic people who are ready to work for a strong Nigeria. Assistant to the President on National Assembly matters, Senator Ita Enang says the National Assembly Joint Committee on Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has no final say on the source of funds for next year's elections. Enang said on Tuesday in a forum in Abuja that the lawmakers' recommendation could not be final. The whole process has to be approved by all the lawmakers at plenary. The National Assembly Joint Committee on INEC recommended late last month that the 143 billion naira requested for the elections should be funded from service-wide votes under the Special Intervention Program. Committee Chairman Senator Suleiman Nazif had said the recommendation was to ease the consideration and avoid increasing the size of this year's expenditure framework. Barely 48 hours after Lagos State Governor Akinwumi Ambode formally declared to run for a second term as a candidate of the All Progressives Congress (APC), analysts say the party structure may have been withdrawn. An army of political generals under the banner of Mandate Group was said to have assembled at a hotel in Ikeja, where a former commissioner in the state, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, was reportedly handed over to them as Ambode's replacement in the 2019 governorship race. A number of APC leaders who were at the meeting reportedly confirmed they were instructed to back Sanwo-Olu in the race. 12 persons, including children, at the internally displaced persons IDPs camp in Daudu, Benue State have died in the last 1 month because of malaria, diarrhea and malnutrition. A health personnel at the camp says the relentless intervention of the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders and the state government prevented the situation from worsening. Executive Secretary of the Benue State Emergency Management Agency, Emmanuel Shio, confirmed the development and lamented that the state government had been overwhelmed by the humanitarian crisis in the state. Flood has reportedly ravaged many homes in 7 communities in the Asako Central Local Government area of Edo State. Many of the residents were left stranded as their properties were submerged. Farmlands with crops such as rice, maize and yam were washed away. Some of the residents say flooding is a recurrent problem in the area. They allege that the government has neglected them since the flood disaster of 2012. A village head, David Inetakwe, alleged that the government has not been fair to the communities over the years. He expressed dismay that they are being abandoned in their time of need. He noted that villagers could not relocate from their homes because access roads in the communities were flooded. Owakurudu community in the Ijebu local government area of Ogun State is becoming deserted because of a gully that is eating into the community. Reports say 50 houses had fallen into the gully reportedly created by an abandoned water channelization project. 8 landlords who owned houses in the area reportedly died from shock after their houses fell into the gully. Some landlords say the state government was responsible for their predicament. Defense Minister Mansur Dan Ali has inaugurated a 6-man technical committee in Abuja on Tuesday to investigate the extent of foreign involvement in the herdsmen-farmers crisis, which has ravaged the country this year. Dan Ali admitted that many reports have been sent to the federal government on the herdsmen crisis, saying that the submissions of the technical committee would be harvested with the various submissions already on ground. The minister said the committee had 3 weeks to investigate the herdsmen menace and proffer solutions to the federal government to end killings across the country. Dan Ali said the crisis has assumed a very disturbing proportion, where innocent lives as well as properties have been lost almost on a daily basis. Meanwhile, National Security Advisor, retired Major General Babangana Monguno, has warned against revenge attacks over the killings in parts of the country. He noted that such could worsen the country's security situation. The federal government is currently negotiating a $6 billion loan from China's Export-Import Bank for the construction of the Ibadan-Kano rail line. It has also approved $195 million to maintain security of Nigeria's waterways by an Israeli firm to curb criminal activities in the maritime sector. Transportation Minister Rotimi Amechi expressed confidence that the amount approved would help reduce crime in the maritime sector. Meanwhile, the Transportation Ministry has also signed a memorandum of understanding with Japan for cooperation in promoting quality infrastructure investment in Nigeria. Nigeria's telecom sector regulator, the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC), says prospective investors would only need to pay 30% income tax, among other mouth-watering incentives rolled out by the federal government. It says the sector, which attracted $70 billion foreign direct investment last year, has been adding $5 billion quarterly since the beginning of the year. NCC Executive Vice Chairman Professor Umar Garba Dambata said in South Africa that investors stood to enjoy pioneer status as well as import duty waivers on essential equipment needed for them to set up businesses in Nigeria, adding that the executive order of the federal government laid special emphasis on transparency in the discharge of official responsibility. Professor Dambata assured investors of attractive returns on investment with Nigeria's huge youthful population. The federal government has approved immediate deportation of 36 Indians and 2 Koreans. The Indian nationals were said to have gained entry into the country with fake visas and counterfeit immigration stamps. The Koreans, on the other hand, are said to have failed to regularize their stay upon the expiration of their contract with the Zamfara state government. Coming up, major events around Africa, and later, 68 die in Afghanistan suicide bombing.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on, so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
I am Lucy Adeyemi.
I am Rotimi Akintunde.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. We bring you the news
On ANN News.
business. Politics.
Global News.
Watch ANN News.
In a truly African spirit. Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to a wrap of African news. Flight to Mitiga Airport, the only working airport in Libya's capital Tripoli, were diverted on Tuesday when rockets were fired in the direction of the only working airport in the city. United Nations brokered a ceasefire agreement between rival armed groups in Tripoli under a week ago after days of clashes in which at least 50 persons were killed and dozens, mainly civilians, were wounded. Meanwhile, Islamic State has claimed responsibility for a shooting attack on the Tripoli headquarters of Libyan State Oil Company, NOC. Officials say 2 NOC staff were killed and 10 wounded in the Monday attack. It was the first attack of its kind against the leadership of Libya's state oil industry. The country has been divided into rival administrations, but NOC has continued relatively normal functions across the country. Libya relies on oil exports for most of its income. The European Union has put forth proposals that could one day offer free trade agreements to Africa. European Union Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, in his annual State of the Union address, put forth various proposals to bolster prosperity on the continent. It called for a more equal partnership and investment rather than aid to Africa. Juncker's proposals are mindful of Europeans looking for ways to stem an economic divide that is driving Africans to migrate northward. A new law criminalizing sexual violence and harassment is now in effect in Morocco. The law includes a ban on forced marriage, and it follows growing concern in recent years about levels of abuse against women. One survey found that 6 in 10 Moroccan women had suffered some kind of violence. Recent rape cases have received wide coverage on social media. A report says the new law has been widely welcomed, but it has also been criticized because it does not provide a definition of domestic violence or a specific ban on marital rape. A UN report suggests that the number of people suffering from hunger has increased during the past 3 years after declining for some years. According to the analysis, more than 800 million people globally were undernourished last year. That's about 1 in every 9 persons. And growth of at least 150 million children under 5 years old has been stunted by poor nutrition. The authors say extreme climate change are partly to blame for the rise. They have called for urgent global action. The State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report also says difficulties accessing nutritious food is contributing to the growing problem of obesity in the world. 1 in 8 adults, more than 600 million, have been classified as obese. Tanzanian President John Magufuli has urged women to give up contraceptive methods, insisting his country needs to increase its population. Magufuli said he has seen the harmful effects of birth control in Europe and elsewhere, and that many of those countries are now facing declining population growth that would lead to shortage of manpower. He urged Tanzanians to ignore what he called bad advice disseminated by outsiders. He said, quote, "It is important to reproduce," end quote. Tanzania's population has grown from 10 million in 1961 when it became independent to 60 million today. The UN predicts Africa's population will double to around 2.5 billion by 2050. The world body says this population explosion could be a time bomb if economic growth and job creation did not keep up. When we return, death toll in Afghanistan suicide bombing rises to 68, and later, Eagles retire President wears jersey with 2-1 defeat.
You are watching ANN.
MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM. That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
While the world sleeps, NN News stays awake. News takes no time off. We are awake so you can sleep. We report the stories that keep you up to date, events that affect your day, your week, month, and experiences. We scour the world, bringing it to your living room. Watch NN News in a truly African spirit.
There is a new all-news network on the scene in Nigeria to give news from a purely news perspective and to promote free information flow across Africa. Fresh views, unbiased, bold, with a purely African view. African News Network, ANN, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is CNN News. Now to international stories. The death toll has risen to 68 in a suicide bomb attack. 165 others are wounded. The bomb went off among some protesters in eastern Afghanistan who had blocked the main highway between the capital Jalalabad and the Pakistan border. The Taliban has denied any involvement. No other group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Both Taliban insurgents and the Islamic State group are active in eastern Afghanistan. The attack has recorded one of the highest death tolls in the country this year. The European Union is planning to send more than 10,000 border guards by 2020 to tackle unlawful immigration. European Union Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker says only a strong and united Europe can protect the citizens against terrorism. Juncker has called for more solidarity rather than ad hoc solutions for people on migrant ships. He also called for a notably controversial proposal to abolish EU member countries' vetoes on certain tax and foreign policy issues. A new Africa-Europe alliance based on cooperation rather than charity is one of the proposals being put forward by Juncker, who has also said that the euro should be used more strategically as the biggest currency after the dollar. This is Juncker's last 12 months as president of the EU Commission. New European Parliament elections will take place in May next year. Russian President Vladimir Putin says the two suspects in the poisoning of ex-Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter are civilians, not criminals. The UK government had said Alexander Petrov and Ruslan Basharov were from Russia's military intelligence service. But Putin said Russia has found the pair and they will appear soon to tell their story. Scotland Yard and the UK's Crown Prosecution Service have said there is enough evidence to charge the men for the crime. A top Chinese official and leaders of several Southeast Asian countries have said that moves by the United States to limit trade and protect American businesses pose a grave threat to the world economy. Chinese Vice Premier Hu Chunchua said the U.S. is undermining the rules-based multilateral trading regime. Chunchua said countries in Asia used to rely on the U.S. to lead, but now they have no choice but to work together since the U.S. is no longer playing the lead role. Iran has agreed to embrace Beijing as an alternative market for its crude oil and financial transactions amid uncertainty over the nuclear deal the U.S. had tried to rescind and from which it has pulled out. By this, China is providing a safe landing to Iran without conditions. Of course, now Beijing will try to extract maximum benefit from the deal. Trade and ties between China and Iran date back more than 2,000 years to the ancient Silk Road caravan routes that brought textiles to Europe. Up next, sports. Nigeria defeat Liberia 2-1 in exhibition match. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
If you know it go internet or follow for Twitter, you know it's not photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Go get Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Go get Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Go get Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Go get Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store anywhere in Nigeria or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it up for your
While the world sleeps, NN News stays awake. News takes no time off. We are awake so you can sleep. We report the stories that keep you up to date, events that affect your day, your week, month, and experiences. We scour the world, bringing it to your living room. Watch NN News in a truly African spirit. Welcome back. This is NN News. In sports, Nigeria's Super Eagles have defeated Liberia's Lone Stars in an international friendly on Tuesday in Monrovia. Liberian President George Weah, who also played on his country's team in jersey number 14, was crushed by the Super Eagles. Nigeria defeated Liberia 2-1 as Onyenkuru and Simi gave Nigeria a slim victory over the Lone Stars. Nigeria have lost hosting rights to Senegal for the 4th Summer Youth Olympic Games in 2022. Nigeria, Botswana, Tunisia and Senegal bid, but the IOC Executive Board made the decision to propose Senegal as host for the Games. Final election of the host nation will take place during the IOC session in Argentina in October. That is NN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other stories, visit our website, nnafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Rotimi Akintunde. Have a great evening.